The very essence of the mental game is this. The only reason an event matters is because we make it matter.
Welcome to the Mullins Farrier Podcast, where I will sit down and converse with the superstars, the overachievers, the masters of our craft. Each episode will be a deep dive into their personal philosophies, their habits, the tools they use, and the secrets to not only their success, but overcoming failure as well.
First, find somebody you can mimic, then find somebody you can stand, and then try to focus on one style until you master that style.
So if you say I can't do something, well, you're absolutely right. But if you say you're going to, you're absolutely right with that too.
People say that you shouldn't define yourself by your work. That is not true.
You know what Dave Farley does when he's, lucky enough to be at the World Equestrian Games? I'm watching other people work.
Yeah.
I don't think we do that enough.
This podcast is for all of you out there who share my passion for the job and the desire to always improve. These interviews will put you in touch with the inner workings of the role models we all want to emulate. So let's get to it.
There's only so many hours in a day, and it's a matter of what you do with them.
Welcome, everyone. This episode comes just after my first visit back to the Heartland after a 2-year hiatus due to COVID restrictions. I was there preparing for my final leg of the FITS ASF, and there were many folks there working towards attempting the various levels of their AFA certifications. It was an amazing group, and it was an honor to work alongside all of them for the entire week, with Chris and Cody imparting their wisdom and critiquing our shoes. Friendships were made, and I look forward to seeing them all again on their certification journeys. When the weekend came and the examiners arrived, everyone gave it their all, and some of us earned a belt buckle, and some of us returned home with lots of lessons learned and a strong determination to attempt the exams again. I was very proud to see my friend Allie Carpenter earn her CF with the AFA, and she is already chasing her CJF. I had a few people reach out to me after my Facebook post about the FITS exam with questions. I'm going to work on getting a complete description of both the FITS exams up on my website so you can see what they're all about. So stay tuned. Today I'm speaking with Brad Davidson, CJF, the proprietor of Professional Farrier Supply, based in Orangeville, Ontario, Canada. As you will hear, Brad and his peers were always hungry to learn more and get better in this trade. We recorded this episode live at the Ontario Farriers Convention, and as Brad is very descriptive with his hands, sometimes his volume drops considerably as the microphone moved further away from his face. My apologies for this, but regardless, I'm sure you'll enjoy this conversation as much as we all did. So, good morning, everyone. We're live here today at the OFA convention. It's nice to see so many people after so long. It's nice to be able to get out and safely distanced, but still able to chat and fix all the world's problems as far as farriers are concerned anyway. So it took a little bit of convincing. Brad actually said to me, I'm the guy behind the scenes, not the guy front and center. So it took some cajoling, but here he is. And I know all of you have spoken to Brad at some point, probably many times, but I thought it would be kind of cool to hear Brad's story in its entirety, just how he got started, how he started the store and made it into the pretty incredible business that it is today. Without Brad, I'm pretty sure most of you people here would not be able to do what we do. So please give a warm welcome to Brad Davidson. So Brad, we'll start with a really easy question. What got you into horses in the first place?
Well, I was always hanging around horses. I loved animals, and I knew that I wanted a job that I wasn't going to commute, and I'm living in the country. So I picked horseshoeing.
Cool. Now, did you have horses growing up?
No, but I rode horses growing up.
Okay.
We were the trail ride guys.
And then how did you get your start? Who were your first mentors?
Well, I went down to Mid-South Academy of Horseshoeing, Lim Couch in Tennessee,
Oh, cool.
and took a farrier course there and come back to Canada and started shoeing horses.
Away you went. So you didn't even have an apprenticeship. You just
No.
went right at it.
If it wasn't for the OFA, I would have quit.
Really?
I was banging it around for 4 or 5 years, and then I said, okay, this is enough for me. And then the OFA started. And then I found all these other guys that were in the same boat.
Right.
And then it became easy.
Okay. Now, I know you pursued your certifications with the AFA. What got you started on that journey?
Oh, it's a whole gang of us doing that. We're all hungry. There was nothing going on. And so when something was happening, we were all hungry at the time. Oh, are you kidding? A horseshoeing contest? You know, a meeting of some time where you got all these guys in the same room that, you know, you're competitors with, and you're kind of just giving the evil eye instead of talking to them. That's how it was.
Yeah, I've heard it was quite.
It was like the junkyard dog, you know, and then everybody became friends once we all got together.
Right. What would you say your education was like when you were down at the school? Like when you first got your start, did you know enough to be dangerous, or was it cold shoeing?
Well, they kind of showed you which side the shoe was up, you know. That was a good start. But it was very limited, but there was tons of work.
Right.
And there was tons of work at the bottom end, you know. I could go over to Albert Greco's and have 100 horses to shoe that day.
Okay.
You know, here you go. Knock yourself out. And any new guy that came out of horseshoeing school, go to Albert's, shoe all that you wanted to shoe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And he had like 200 horses, right?
Wow. Now, what type of horses did you mainly work on, or was it a mishmash in the beginning?
Well, the beginning or the end. You know, at first it was anything with 4 legs and tail and a mane, and that's good for me. At the end, I mostly did hunters and jumpers and racehorses.
Okay.
The racehorses were the winter work, and the jumpers and the hunters were in the summer, event horses.
Okay. And then I guess with all of you guys getting together and learning off of each other, who were some of the clinicians that you first started having up with the OFA that you think really changed the game for you guys?
Well, we're so lucky. Seneca College was going on. Mel Livingston was running it. You know, we'd book guys, everybody. And, you know, so we'd all the same dozen guys. We had a dozen places to work. Bob Marshall would come for a week. He was the biggest contributor to our success. You know, then we all decided to get certified. So it's easy when there's a dozen. You know, I had guys like Luke that we're all working together, and, you know, would help you with whatever you're struggling with in the forging.
Okay.
And then, you know, somebody would be a smart guy and he'd have this all figured out and all the book work, and boom, boom, boom. We just all worked together, and we all went to get certified at the same time. There's at least a dozen of us.
Perfect. How did you make that connection? Because I know you managed the Canadian team for a period of time, did you not?
Yeah, a few years.
Yeah. How did you guys make that connection between all of the farriers in Canada to basically set up that Canadian team?
Well, what happened was Stuart McCauley was the first exchange student to go to England. So he hooked us up with Edward Martin.
No, perfect.
So then we'd get Edward Martin and Jim Belfer and get them back. They'd come to our place. Pat Belfer's dad, and I think Jim is son, but it's Pat. So they would come back, and then we'd have a week clinic. We had week clinics. You know, if you didn't get better building horseshoes with Bob Marshall after a week. And Hans Wiese said, this is the first time I've ever been to a place in 3 days in a row in my life.
Right, yeah.
You know, and we got to do another 2. You know, so it was 5 days, you know.
Okay.
Where you just set everything down, and everybody would come and hang around, and, you know, there'd be the same dozen guys, Steve Morris, Terry Osborne from Ottawa, Des and Luke and Dave Waugh, you know, Hans, Bill Crothers. It was a fun bunch that we're all trying to do the same thing. You know, once they said there was a certification, we're on for that. You know, just like, let's see who can ride this one. You know, that's how it was. You know, somebody's getting on it.
And then did you have a main shop that you guys would go to, or do you
Seneca.
Oh, so that's where it all
had
happened.
The best.
Okay.
You know, all the ambles were set up. We could go there all the time. We had a shop, you know, that 3 of us owned. Like, David Braithwaite, myself, and Charlie and Bill Everett. We had a shop on 27 Highway that we carried on in and try and make shoes in there.
Okay. So David Braithwaite is a gentleman. He was into carriage horses, was he not?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I've met him.
But he did a lot with Robert Mouso. And he shot all Robert's horses back in the day, right?
Okay. Gotcha. Now, what got you started into the supply business?
Well, I knew I was going to shoe. I made a deal with Bill Everett. Bill Everett wanted to be a sailboat captain, and I wanted to quit when I was 52 as well, 50 as well. So he said, I'm quitting when I'm 50. I'm going to get a boat, and I'm taking off. I said, I'm quitting when I'm 52. And we made this pact for 20 years. When the day I turned 50, I quit shoeing horses.
Could you describe for everybody how you did that process? Because I know some people kind of taper out and...
I told them all, when my birthday comes, I'm not coming back. How's that?
Thank you.
That was, that was so good, but I knew that I was going to be flat broke at 50 and I had to start something else. So, 10 or 15 years before that. And it wasn't me that started the Farrier Supply business. It was Ginny. I was out shoeing horses for 16 hours a day. I had nothing to do with it. And Ginny was a bookkeeper all her life. So it was a little easier for her to do. It was her business. It wasn't mine.
Okay. Gotcha. When I was asking you about this before the conversation, you told me a story about a gentleman who owned another Farrier Supply, and he said he wasn't threatened by you.
Oh, yeah, Brad Davidson. He had the same last name, Enniskillen Farrier Supply. And this is why I started. I remember meeting Hans and a couple other guys and 5 guys outside of Farrier Supply business, and we didn't have enough nails to shoe one horse between us all. And the store is closed, and he has no nails. And we're waiting for him to come back with the nails. Now, the next day, we're still waiting for nails. Now we bring a football. We got something to do, and it got a little challenging. It was all out of necessity. We couldn't get the product. And then there's times like Bill Crothers walked in and had a whole pile of shoes there. Bill said, I want all them shoes. How much? Make a deal for them all. And then he took all the shoes. So I said, I got to take all the nails. And Hans took all the rest. He was out again. And I took like 20 cases of nails because I needed to trade Bill for shoes. I couldn't take that. And I needed to trade Hans for the rest. Or else I didn't have any rest. And nobody would take cash if you had the stuff. You had to trade off other horseshoe and stuff for it. You couldn't just say, here's $50. There's none of that going on. So it was, to get the stuff was a challenge.
Wow. So then did you Ginny started it up and then?
Yeah, just built a little garage, like 20 by probably 12 or 15 in Schomberg. And she was raising kids, selling shoes out of the garage.
Okay. And where was the closest supply store before that?
Well, it was in Nobleton, but then they quit.
Okay.
He was never there anyway. He might as well quit. And then we threatened him with death a few times, for not having the shoes and nails,
Gotcha. I've heard lots of stories from people who've been in it a while where the quality of the shoes wasn't that great and there wasn't a lot of variety.
Well, sure. You could have diamond, or diamond. Take your pick, and then we got better shoes. And that's the biggest thing that ever happened in the horseshoeing business is the shoes.
Yeah.
The shoes got better and better and better. Ernie always told me, Ernie J, 1 hour in the shop got you 3 hours out in the road. And so you'd have to go to the shop, clip your shoes, make them fronts and hinds. Half the times we drilled them for 1/4-inch holes. If we had to put screw-ins in them,
they were already pre-drilled. Yeah.
And we had punches to fix them if we mushed them up. The best part was having them ready. And you could get way more horses done. And Ernie was right. 1 hour in the shop saved us 3 hours on the road.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that. I was trying to remember that quote the other day for somebody. So with the practicing for the AFA certifications and things like that, and with all of these great clinicians coming in, did you ever embrace handmaids as part of your practice, or you just used the factory shoes in your day-to-day and then practiced in the forge?
Bar shoes. We made bar shoes.
Gotcha.
90% of the shoes I made were bar shoes.
Well, that plays into my presentation today. That's great. And could you even buy bar shoes at that point?
No, we just made them. And then you got good at making bar shoes. It just depends what you want to do. I never shod a lot of horses. I think the only reason I shod horses with handmade shoes was to get good enough to pass the CJF. That's it.
Right.
And I couldn't understand it. And, I wasn't as proficient as Luke and the rest of the guys. I mean, I helped Luke with a broken arm one time to help him. And he would make them shoes way faster than I could nail them on. Hans and I were nailing them on, and Luke was 5.5 minutes a pair, and they were being fit. He was a machine. He had a broken arm. That's why we were helping him. So it was really fun to see how fast the whole game has jumped up.
Yeah.
And it's jumped up even further now. I see the shoes that they're making on the world stage now and what they were making 20, 30 years ago, totally different.
Yeah.
It's got better and better.
It's the cool thing about this trade is everybody's building upon the generation before them, and it can't help but get better.
Yeah.
I would think.
It certainly has.
Yeah. Now, being in this industry and seeing it from both sides, the supplier and a farrier yourself, what are other than the shoes, what are some of the bigger changes that you saw happen over the
You guys
over
are
the time?
driving way too much. That's what I know. Guys would have 100 horses and ask me to shoe their horse. And I said, you're 25 miles away. I'm not coming there. You're too far. You're like, well, number 9 to 89. That was it.
Yeah.
And I never went past Newmarket. And, Orangeville, I turned down Stuart Black's horses. He was on the Canadian event team because he was too far in Orangeville from Schomburg. You just had to, some of my barns, I could take a wagon and just walk over there from my house, to some big barns, Everything was really tight. We didn't drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we do a lot of that now. What do you think changed to make it that we are doing so much driving now?
I have no idea. I can't figure it out. 5 guys in one barn. There's none of that. You did the barn or somebody else did the barn. Right. If Luke was doing a barn and he was shoeing over there, I never went over there.
So I remember you telling me that particular thing. How did you guys get business then? If you weren't encroaching in other people's territories, how did that work? Like, did a client just kind of call you up if they were looking to make a change and that was it? Or
I think it's like everything else. It's all word of mouth. You're shoeing this guy's horses and then somebody else is looking for a horseshoer. You didn't have to tell them much. They already knew. When somebody phones you up, 90% of the time, like you're a piano tuner or something, if you're trying to find a piano tuner, you find somebody else that's hired a piano tuner and you don't even have to ask them how much because somebody's already told you
yeah, right.
how much it is. And so that's how it was. Hey, can you shoe my horse? And it was yes or no. And then it got to be a lot of no's. Because you had all the help you could get and you couldn't get them done.
Right.
You couldn't get them done.
So, and you've told me that one of the big changes too was cell phones, right? Because you would work all day, not be interrupted by any text messages or calls. Wouldn't that have been a glorious time? And then you get home at night and go through your messages, right?
Then we didn't call them back then. And then Ginny would say, Brad's not home. Then they call that night. But cell phones, I mean, it's, there's some fabulous things. Like I'm driving past a place that blew a shoe. I don't know they blew a shoe.
Mm-hmm.
I could have stopped in there, got it done in 10 minutes. Now I'm going back the next day. So there's some pros and cons to the whole thing.
Yeah, that's true. And towards the end, you had quite the crew working with you as well, right? When you had about 3 people, did you not?
Oh, yeah. Especially in the winter.
To keep warm?
Well, we just turned January into our best month.
Yes, I've heard this story. Something, who was the clinician who said, take your 2 biggest weaknesses?
No, Bob Marshall. He said,
Bob Marshall, okay.
Find your weakness, what you do the worst in your horseshoeing job, and make it the best and bring up the overall average. So he'd always pick on me and, oh, Brad, I trim like shit, Bob, or, I can't level shoes, or I nail bad. So I just told him January is my worst part, my horseshoeing job. And he said, well, I can't fix that. And I started thinking about it. I'm going to fix that. And, Charlie was off the racetrack. Chuck was not doing much. He wasn't riding and shoeing horses. So we said, let's go shoe some thoroughbreds. We'll just go shoe 50 a day. So that's what we did. We shot 50 a day in front or we wouldn't go. They don't have 50, we're not coming.
Wow.
And that's what we did for January. It made January my best month. Because we were all broke. Soon as Christmas come, we blew the wad, and then nobody was calling in January.
Right.
That's the way it was.
Yep. And then when did you make your move from Schaumburg to the large farrier supplier that we know now in Orangeville?
20 years ago.
That must have been quite the
Well, they were selling
jump.
the place I was renting.
Oh, okay.
So I had no choice.
Gotcha. And you guys built that place, did you not? Okay. So as you grew, you became sort of a countrywide business. Were you at that point when you moved there, or was that just something you knew you were going to eventually need that kind of space? Or how did that work?
I think it should be this big. And then the Mennonite guys that were building it for me said, add another 30 feet, add an apartment upstairs. I said, okay. And that was that.
Gotcha.
It was a great deal that they made that suggestion. Make it a little bigger, make it a little taller. He says, you always build too small.
Right. That is true.
And I've never built a commercial building before, but it was a cinch compared to building houses.
Good to know for anybody planning on building a shop. So what were your experiences like on the team? You were the manager of the team. Did you ever compete on the team?
Well, very little. I mean, I stuck for Luke a little bit, but what the biggest thing for the team was they never had any money. Nobody had any money, and they're running around. And these guys were busting hard. They were working as hard as they could work and still getting into practice. And I said, I'm going to support that. I know what these guys are doing. I had Billy Crothers phone me up from one day and say, I finally figured it out. I just got to get up at 4:00 in the morning and I practice. and then go to work. Because when he'd get home and he'd be practicing after he got home, he'd be out there till 9:00 and go to bed. And Jean was getting a little, she didn't want any part of this practicing. So he just got up at 4:00 in the morning and did it another time. And, Luke was waking up at 3:00 in the morning making roadsters.
Isn't that what we all do?
No, but this was true. Lots of them. I go to Luke's every Sunday for maybe 6 months in a row just to make draft shoes.
Really?
Yeah, every Sunday we meet up in Fort Erie. Right?
Gotcha. Does anybody from the audience have any questions that they've been really meaning to ask? Oh, Andrew has one. Question from Andrew DeVisser.
So, Mr. Brad, I had a question. As running a farrier supply store, you've seen a huge shift in the kind of modern materials that farriers can use. And so do you think that overall this has, obviously there's a lot of ways that we can help horses with the modern materials. Do you think there's any ways in which farriers have become over-dependent on them versus more traditional methods?
Well, I've got it all wrong a lot of times. When, the whole vet tech stuff come out, I said, that's not going to fly. This stuff isn't going to fly here. They made a believer out of me. Whether it's over dependence or whatever, I don't know. But, I had dash young kids that come into my shop. What do you think horses ever did before this stuff was out? How do you think they lasted 1,000 years? He says, I don't know. And I went, well, maybe that's the answer. I don't know either.
Brandy, did you have a question?
Can you tell us, because you have so many stories over the years, give us one of your most memorable shoeing, your favorite horse, your favorite client, your favorite case, something that none of us know because we don't have that many years experience under our belt yet, and all the adventures you've done and gone through with other great farriers from Ontario.
There's some stories I just don't want to tell. But one of the fun stories I had was at Steve Morris's shop. Edward was there. He's making, these deep-seated bar shoes out of 1.5 inches. He's getting tired. And I looked out and all the geese were flying over. It was in the fall. And I said, Edward, can you give me a hand? He says, yeah. And he stopped foraging. And we go out, and as I was walking out, I knew Bob Ward drank scotch. I said, you got any scotch, Bob? He says, yeah, there's some in the front seat of my truck. I grabbed the bottle of scotch. We went out and hid behind Steve's barn and watched the geese fly over. And he's talking about this geese. He's never seen geese migrate. So we're out there for about 15 minutes, drinking the scotch and watching the geese, and then they come and found us. But I knew when Edward needed a break. And that was the time, because he never quit. And so that was a fun deal. I'll always remember that.
That's really cool. This portion of the podcast is called the Stratum Tictorium. These are the short answer, surface stuff questions. But it's okay if the guest wants to go deeper. Enjoy. Do you have a favorite book?
The last book I read was Bomber Mafia, Malcolm Gladwell.
Oh, cool.
How they made the bomb site.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite brand of nails?
No.
When you were shoeing, what sizes did you generally have to stock the most of?
Odds, ones, and twos, right?
Do you have a favorite make of rasp?
No.
Okay, I'll skip those questions. Did you have a dream farrier rig?
No.
This is going to be the fastest speed class ever. Did you have a favorite rounding hammer that you used?
Yeah, I had a J-sharp rounding hammer that I treasured.
What was your favorite type of bar stock to work with?
5/16, 7/8.
What's your favorite pastime after work?
Sleeping.
What's the next thing on your bucket list?
I would like to go to Australia.
Cool. What was your ideal number of horses to shoe all around in one day?
There was no numbers. There was no ideal. It's what we had to do today because we're going somewhere tomorrow.
Did you have a favorite anvil you used?
No, I really didn't. They just progressed.
Okay.
But there was no favorites. It wouldn't matter, as long as you had one.
Do you have a favorite quote?
Nobody gets out alive.
I think that's my favorite Brad quote. If back in the day you were stumped on a case or needed backup, who did you call?
There was many. I was so gifted to have so many guys. I mean, we'd be arguing in our kitchen. There'd be 5 guys in the kitchen that were shoeing horses. None of us ever come up with the same solution. It was kind of a judged event. But whenever I needed any help, Mal Livingston, Luke, Hans, there were so many. Bill Everett.
Okay. Did you have a favorite shoe or package when you had a horse that the client wasn't getting the vet out to diagnose it or anything that you would kind of go to, like as a go-to?
Well, we just shod the horses. We didn't listen to vets too much back then.
I never would have gathered that.
No, we just shod the horses. We did our job. They did their job. Everybody was happy.
What's your favorite method of soothing aches and pains?
Get away from horseshoeing. Go hunting.
Okay. What's your favorite drink?
Jameson's.
See, I thought that was going to be the answer to the last question. Favorite genre of music?
I was always, the Doobie Brothers guy.
Do you work out?
No.
And what would you have been if not a farrier?
Broke.
And the COVID question, if you were stuck in a shop for a month with somebody, who would you want it to be?
Oh, and make horseshoes?
Yeah.
I'll pass on that one.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Brad. And thanks everybody here. This was awesome. Thank you. Before I let you go, I want to say a few words about Mark Thorkensen's Hoof Knives. If you haven't already listened to Mark's episode, I highly recommend it. In it, he talks about how he started making his own knives and what a difference it had made to the soreness he was experiencing in his wrists. I have the privilege to work in some really nice and really well-managed barns here in Ontario, and a downside of that is that most of the feed I work on are clean, dry, and hard from the beautiful deep shavings the horses are bedded on. Mark's words kept playing in my head as I applied Voltaren to my wrists and hands for the millionth time, and I ended up ordering one of his right-handed straight blades. I was quite excited when it finally arrived in the mail, and not only is it aesthetically stunning, but it does an excellent job as well. It is surgically sharp and durable to boot. And lo and behold, Mark was right. My wrists have felt way better. So next time you see Mark make a post about a batch of his knives he has made, I'd recommend you jump at that opportunity because they go fast, and now I know why. Also, your wrists will thank you. Well, until next time, take care of yourselves and each other out there. We'll talk soon.